Philadelphia has an iconic art museum. But some of this city's most impressive artwork is out on the street, an outdoor art gallery that pays homage to the ordinary and to the epic.
It's taken many different forms. I think some of it I was really drawn to is just like specific voices within a neighborhood. And as an artist, you're constantly like creating your own problems in your own studio. And it was one of the more kind of eye-opening and beautiful experiences where it took me outside of myself. And so hearing some of those voices in neighborhoods, and I never really even grew up in a city, so it was like hearing a lot of the neighborhood voices and concerns or ideas like in a city context was really exciting, and something that was incredibly like deep for just imagery and ideas and exploration. Yeah, definitely. I think at first started to do it in like in the visual imagery in my early murals, and then started to feed some of my thought processes in the studio too. And I think that like a bigger arc and banner is just kind of like making sense of our place in the world. And there's a lot of different viewpoints, and like trying to understand them and be open to them and explore them and communicate around them. And so I feel like there's a great arc and connection to, or like how art is able to communicate. It's like a unifier sometimes. I mean, it can scratch some itches, but also like open some wounds. But I think there's just something extremely powerful in just imagery, and especially in a public space that already has a built environment, has an audience, it has the neighbors, or if it's like downtown, it has like a transient population of people working, kind of existing in that space, so they're interacting with that image and or content or concept. So it was just pretty exciting to try and be a part of it. With the public art, I feel like there's not. I usually respond to like the place, and usually there's most of the time working with public art is the public's involved in some sort of way, and so there's already conversations being had. So it's like going and trying to like let that kind of filter through you and come up with ideas and imagery around it. Be interested to see if like there's some like connecting thread maybe through me. I think there's always one of the things I still want the personal part of whatever I'm doing to be attached to the work that I'm doing, but sometimes it's hard to see like what that actually looks like, or is it like is there like a larger theme that I'm kind of working under. Sometimes I start to think that it might be just kind of like more through landscape, even though a lot of the I do a lot of different kind of work in my studio as well, and I feel like looking at the public art, it tends to be, I start with a sense of place, and that kind of tends to be more landscape oriented and in the way that I see things. And then kind of thinking about like the people already entwined in that. You don't need to put a person in it to say that there's people in it. It's like we exist within it, and so some of it is just building from there. It's like there's nothing like it where you're actually working on a wall, and say if you're doing something for like 10 weeks. Like this summer, I just did one for about 11 weeks in Brewery Town, and on the wall every day. 11 weeks, you get to hear everything. You get to hear people be like, "Whoa, man!" They get to see the entire process. It's like demystifying some of like what how something is made, and it's pretty amazing to see the reactions, and also like the criticism. You get to have very real conversations. Like sometimes, what the work is about, or like a specific viewpoint that's not being heard, and it really opens and challenges some of the way you approach your own work. They're emotional. Like they can kind of be, if you're like whatever subject matter you're starting to paint and kind of explore, and like the people that you interact with and like all this stuff, it becomes extremely emotional. And you take on a lot and you feel a lot of responsibility sometimes. You know, stuff is going to live in a place in other people's lives, and like I don't take that lightly. So some of it is like, so I think that's kind of one of the harder things. It was just extremely moving, and so when you have these like very raw, emotional, moving experiences while you're working, while you know, before, during, after, it changes a part of you. It changes your perception. It, you know, it gives you something to like hang your hat on as far as like what's really meaningful in the world and what's real.